Hey guys, this is Cinderhawk Creative, and I am going to help you guys out with Photoshop CS5 by starting out and showing you guys just a little bit about the workspace and some things you can do that you may not know. Here we go. First, obviously, you're going to want to open up Photoshop, which, if you're on a Mac, I'm working on a Mac, so anything I do, basically, if there's a Windows equivalent, I will say it. I don't work on Windows very often, so I don't know everything in regards to that, but I will do my best to let you guys know what it is that I'm trying to get across. So this is your standard workspace that I believe it opens up with, by default, is your Essentials workspace. There's also Design and Painting, and there's some others here. You can make your own workspace, and if you need to, you can go to Window Workspace, and then, go to your keyboard shortcuts and menus, and anytime you wanted to, you can change any of your keyboard shortcuts if you want to. Like I worked with a program before Photoshop that used Command R to crop an image, so I set my crop command in Photoshop to Command R. So, for instance, you would, if you wanted to change copy, you would go to your edit menu, because that's what would be up here, and then find copy and click on it, and then you can change it. It will warn you down here if you're about to change it to something else when that shortcut is already being used, and then if you hit accept that, then it should take you to the other one, and you can change the other one to whatever you need it to be. Let's see, your view menus, you can do, well, here, let me open a new file first. This would be your new file screen. You got your pixels, you got your inches, you got centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, and columns. Really the only two I ever work with are these two here. Pixels for web design, inches for print. Your resolution, I do have a bird in the background, so I'm sorry if he decides to go off like he just did. If you have something you're designing for print, you're only going to want your resolution to be 72 pixels per inch. I'm sorry, for web, you're only going to want your resolution to be 72 pixels per inch, only because most monitors only display 72 pixels per inch, so anything higher, there's really no point to doing it unless you're planning to print it. 300 is very, very high resolution. 150 is obviously about half resolution. 300 pixels per inch is going to have a very large file size, unless you compress it as a JPEG. You're usually going to want to work in RGB color, especially if you're designing for web. CMYK color is for print. That is printer-based colors. You got your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. This, I've never completely understood this, so I'm not going to get into that. You can choose a background color. You can choose a transparent background, which is what I usually start with because I never want to draw on the background. Color profile, typically if you're designing something for print, you're going to want to use Adobe RGB, and I don't actually see that on here. That may just be something that shows up in Illustrator. I don't work in Photoshop very often anymore. I typically use Illustrator. I'm a graphic design major. I'm going for my bachelor's at the moment. I will be graduating in 2 semesters. If you go to your preset web, you can have your standard web sizes, dependent on monitor resolutions. Most people will be right around here. Larger monitors may be up here. These are for older screens. So anyway, we're going to open it up with 32 pixels per inch, and we'll just do it like this, and we'll do 11 by 17. Background contents, transparent. Well, there's your RGB, Adobe RGB. So anyway, this is my canvas. This is transparent layer. That's what the little things mean. There is a way to change the color of the grid. I think in default it's gray, not red. But that's just something I found, and I don't really remember how to get there right this second, but I can show you guys later if you're interested in that. For me, I have Command-Shift-N is to create a new file. Command-N is to create a new layer. If you don't want to use the keyboard shortcut, or if you don't have it set up the same way, you can just go to this little icon right here when your layers panel is selected and new layer, and then you can name it whatever you want. I usually just leave them as the default layers unless I got like a whole bunch. This is your general workspace. You have your images here. If you have multiple files open, you can click and drag these around so that you can reorder them. This is your selection or move tool. This is your, what is this? Your marquee tool, something I don't typically use unless I'm cropping something. But you also have a crop tool right here. If you click and hold on any of these icons with a little triangle, it's going to open up more options for that tool or more tools depending on what it is. Eyedropper is typically used for selecting a color. Your brush tool, if you select that, you're going to have a whole bunch of brushes up here. These are, most of these that you see here I've imported from various sources. These here are definitely your standard ones. I don't use these very often. I use stuff more like the grass tool, the stars, etc. You can change your brush size. If you want to load a brush in, I'll show you that in another tutorial because that's kind of, depending on what you're working with, it can be kind of intensive. And I'm going to say right now I don't know how to do it on Windows because I haven't done it on Windows in a very, very long time. So I will only be able to show you guys that on Mac. What do we got here? You got your mode. These are your blend options. So if you select one of these, it's going to change the way the brush looks when it goes on the layer. This is your opacity, basically your transparency, how transparent the brush stroke is. This is how much, essentially, ink is coming off of the brush at a given time. You can mess around with those two things in conjunction and they'll make it look different. The clone tool I will go over a bit in a separate tutorial if you guys are interested. That's something that's very, very useful, especially for editing things out of images. Your smudge tool, you also have your blur and sharpen tool, your dodge, burn, sponge, your text tool. My bird is trying to visit. My computer does this. Most of them won't. This is just something that it started doing recently. I don't know why, but it could be because I'm running out of hard drive space. So just give it a second. If you wanted to create, a new text thing, you would just click and hi, my name is Stephanie. And this is also not a decent font. There we go. And then you can change your font size. Your sponge tool is more like a painting tool. These are vector graphics. This is something that is unique to CS5. I'm not sure if it's in CS4, but I know it's not in CS3, at least not that I've seen. But I haven't used CS5 and CS3 in a very long time. It will have a vector overlay, vector mask. If you wanted to get rid of that, you would right-click and control-click if you don't have the programmable mouse or Snow Leopard that allows you to do the two-finger right-click on your trackpad. And you would do rasterize layer, and it gets rid of the vector mask. I actually really hate the vector mask. It's something that drove me nuts when I first started using CS5. Other than that, if there's anything else you guys want to know for your basic stuff, this is just an introductory thing. Your filters are up here. Anything you can do to the image. Your layer panel, adjustments to your image. Obviously these are all grayed out because I don't actually have an image on here yet. But it's just more of a learning experience. You just got to play around with the tools and see what they do in order to learn what they do. This is Cinderhawk Creative, and I will be posting more tutorials soon. And if you have a request for a tutorial, please let me know in the comments. Thanks.